Hey everyone, welcome to the channel where we talk about all things movies. If you enjoy talking about movies and just staying up to date on, things as they hit theaters, be sure to subscribe. I post usually 2 or 3 reviews per week of, the newest movies that have hit theaters. So with that, let's get into today's review, which is the Bob's Burgers movie. And so in this movie, the Belchers try to save the restaurant from closing as a sinkhole forms in front of it, while the kids try to solve a mystery that could save their family's restaurant. Now, my anticipation going into this film was pretty much non-existent. I've seen some trailers, or the trailer for this in front of movies, but I haven't seen the show, and I know, I don't even think I knew anything about the show. I'd say I knew exactly 0% about the show, other than that it exists. So I came in as, completely new, didn't look up anything about it, and that's the perspective that you'll get here within this review. So with that, let's jump into what I liked about the film. And first off, I would say the story was actually pretty good for like an animated film, especially one that's based off of a TV show. Like a lot of times these sort of things are just hit or miss and they feel just kind of like cash grabs and that sort of thing. But while it wasn't like the strongest story, I thought it had a pretty good story and kind of the mystery element that's going on gives it a bit of momentum going forward. And then next up, what I liked about the film, I thought it was fairly comedic. I mean, I think there's a lot of jokes that I probably missed being new to these characters and that sort of thing. But it was still pretty fun and had me chuckling a few times here and there. I also thought that the movie had a pretty good message overall, and I think there's two of the main characters that kind of learn a lesson throughout the course of the film. So I think while maybe one of them I felt more in tune with or applicable to myself. I thought they're both good, especially for a family animated film, to just kind of give it a bit more heart and character that way. All right, and the next thing that I liked was just the character of Bob. I felt that he was the most relatable to me personally, and so I connected with a lot of the humor that kind of fed out of that character. And yeah, it was just nice to see that sort of character in this sort of a movie. And then I think the biggest plus is they made a movie that was still, accessible, or I mean it wasn't totally inaccessible to somebody like myself who hasn't seen the show. And that said, I'm sure it's, more enjoyable for those who have. Maybe, maybe not, I don't know. But I was glad that I didn't feel lost when I jumped into the film. So next up, we'll just go over some of the things that I didn't really care for about the film. And the first one was just, I don't know, I thought it was kind of strange. I don't know if this is necessarily a bad thing. It just has me kind of mixed feelings on it. I'm not really sure why they had two male actors play two of the female characters. As I understand it, that's how it's done on the show as well. But that just seemed kind of weird and honestly kind of took me out of the film like anytime those characters were on screen. Now I know it's animation and that sort of thing. I don't really want to open up that can of worms as to whether or not that should be done or if that's fine. It just for me personally that did take me out of the film, and that's a lot of what I could. That's only. Or that was mostly what I could only think about when those characters were on screen. So I just felt that it was distracting. And then next up, while I thought the mystery kind of helped the plot move along, I didn't. I think it could have been better, insofar as we, the audience, don't really get a chance to solve it. Like there aren't clues and enough there for us to piece together and then feel good about ourselves because we pieced it together by the end of the film. It just kind of unfolds and you follow along. Now, I mean, it helps move the plot along because, you are getting those new pieces of information, but you're just never given that chance to put it together yourself, which I think is a shortcoming of any sort of mystery. And then the last thing I didn't really care for were the music numbers in this. They weren't bad, and they were fine, but just for I think there's three, 4 songs, something like that. I wasn't really expecting that, although I guess it's an animated movie, and maybe that was like I don't know if they do that in the show or if this was just them kind of fitting the trope of, especially like Disney movies, you've got a lot of singing and that sort of thing. But I thought that the musical numbers were not all that catchy. I mean, they are to a certain degree. It's the sort of tune that would get stuck in your head, but not one that you particularly care for. And those are like my least favorite sorts of songs because yeah, I like, again, nothing against the composers or anything. It wasn't bad music, but it's not the one that I want to get stuck in my head, but I'm very aware that it probably could. So those I don't think are the best for animated films. I think like I personally enjoy a slightly different style of music, but that's just kind of my take on it. Hopefully other people enjoy that a bit more than I did. So that kind of wraps up my general thoughts on the film, the things that I didn't like, the things that I liked. I'd say overall I had fun enough with this film. I would give it a letter grade of a B, and that's mainly just due to a good enough story and yeah, good enough humor throughout. It's not anything I would say, yeah, definitely go out and see. I don't know that it necessarily needs to be seen on the big screen either, but it was fun enough, and that's just coming from a perspective of somebody who's never seen the show. So I don't know if it, is more enjoyable if you have seen the show, or if it's the sort of movie where it maybe doesn't live up to what the fans would be looking for in a movie from like that's an extension of the show. So I can't really speak to that. I'd love to hear it if you are a fan of the show and you saw this movie. I'd love to hear what was your take on it. But yeah, ultimately it's one that I think I'd recommend it if you're looking for something to watch, but definitely don't have to rush out to see. Alright, so that wraps up this review. If you've enjoyed this review, be sure to smash that like button and subscribe so you don't miss any of my upcoming reviews. Alright, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next video.